Hey everyone, welcome back to the water studio. As you can see, we got a new backdrop. This is the first official tutorial that I'm shooting in the new studio, and I'm really excited about that. But let's get on with today's topic. Today we're going to be cleaning my inline muzzleloader. And you would use this process, for any inline muzzleloader that you have. I say inline muzzleloader because the more traditional muzzleloaders are a bit different than modern inline muzzleloaders. So this is really how you would clean a modern inline muzzleloader. So first off, I just want to make sure and stress safety, right? We need to be safe. So this, I haven't pulled this out of the safe for, it's been a while. It's been maybe over a year. So the first thing I like to do when I pull out any weapon is to make sure it's not loaded, right? This is a break action muzzleloader. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to open the action up and make sure the gun is pointed in a safe direction. There's nobody to my left or to your right on the screen. And I'm just going to look. There's no primer in the muzzleloader, and I can actually see the light of day coming through. But what I like to do, just to be safe, super safe, is I like to take the breech plug, remove the breech plug from the muzzleloader. You're going to have to do this anyway to clean it, right? So I like to remove my breech plug just to make sure that if there is a load in there, I can see it. Once you do this, obviously if there was a load inside, I wouldn't be able to see inside the barrel. So I'm going to point this at the camera. Don't worry, there's nobody there. And I don't know if you can see through it, but there's no load in there. There's no powder. There is no lead, and obviously no primer. And here's my breech plug. So I'm going to set my breech plug aside. Now I know that this weapon is safe. So I'm going to close the action. I'm going to set it back here on the stand. Okay. So now we know our weapon is safe to handle and to clean, right? So that's the first thing you want to do. Make sure that your weapon is safe and that you're cleared to move on with the cleaning process. So if you haven't seen the first video in this series called The Components of an Inline Muzzleloader, you need to watch that first. I'm not going to go over the components because I already covered that in another video. So go ahead and check that out first and then come back to this one. But if you've watched that video, you know what the components of an inline muzzleloader are, right? And among those components, there are 3 that you need to make sure are clean before you shoot your muzzleloader or after you shoot your muzzleloader. That's your barrel, the breech plug, and the firing pin assembly. Okay, you need to make sure those things are clean. Now, it's been a year since I've shot this muzzleloader, so before I stored it, I cleaned it, right? But over the period of a year, over the course of a year, could be dust inside, there could be moisture. I mean, depends where you store it. If you didn't store it correctly, or even if you did, who knows? Things happen, right? So I'm actually going to shoot this muzzleloader next week, but I want to make sure it's clean before I go and do that. Before I take it in the field, I want to clean it before I go and shoot, not just after. So what I recommend is that we disassemble the muzzleloader first to make cleaning a little bit easier. Now on this muzzleloader, see if you can see it, there's a screw right here in the stock, okay? And I'll get a close-up of that so you can see it a little better. I'm going to remove that screw, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to take the barrel, remove the barrel from the stock, and once the barrel's off, I can get my firing pin assembly out also. So let's go ahead and do that. Just be careful with your muzzleloader. It's just a screwdriver, so I'm just going to unscrew it. Okay, and there's that screw. Pretty simple, right? I'm going to put it right here by my breech plug. Okay, now be careful, because now that you've done that, your barrel's no longer attached to your stock, see? So I'm going to break the action, and I'm going to be careful, your barrel's heavy. You'll notice when you disassemble, your barrel is the majority of the weight of your muzzleloader. So I've disassembled taken my barrel from my stock, and you'll see the scope is obviously attached to my barrel. So I'm just going to gently, carefully place this to the side, okay, here. And here's my stock. You can take a look inside. You can clean this out if you want. There shouldn't really be any debris in here. Mine is perfectly clean. But if you take it out in the field and drop it or something in the dirt, this might get dirty. You might want to clean this as well. But I don't need to do that today. So I'm going to set that aside over here. And this is the butt end of my rifle here, right? And you'll see, I'll get another close-up of this, but just from far, you can see that's my firing pin assembly is in here. You see it's just a screwdriver head that I can unscrew, and the firing pin assembly will come out. So when you shoot your muzzleloader, you'll notice this is going to be really dirty. Your breech plug is going to be extremely dirty. Your barrel is going to be extremely dirty. All this stuff is going to be dirty, right? Mine is clean because I'm cleaning it before I take it into the field. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're like, well, it's not dirty. Well, with a muzzleloader, my experience, I'm just unscrewing this firing pin screw head right here. Be careful with this because you got your screw, and then you have the firing pin assembly is in there as well. See, you got to be careful. If you lose this sucker, you might have a hard time finding it. And you'll see there's a little spring on there, and then it's just a metal bit, and that's the firing pin. That's what hits the primer, okay? So I took that out. And then I can kind of look inside here where my firing pin assembly sits, and it's actually dirty. So it needs to be cleaned. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the barrel. Okay, most obvious, the biggest thing I need to clean here. So I'm going to actually remove the ramrod just so it's not in the way. I'm going to set that here. All right, and like I said, I'm looking through it, and it looks fairly clean, but there's definitely some fouling in there that I missed from the last time, which is not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to take my wire brush that I've already attached to my cleaning rod here, and make sure that this is a wire brush that is set for a 50 caliber barrel, so that you get a good clean. If your brush is too thin for the caliber you're cleaning, you're going to miss some fouling. So make sure that you have the right diameter brush to clean with. Now, as far as what you use to clean, this is up for debate, right? I know plenty of people that use soap and water. Literally, that's what they use. And so they avoid buying, some of these extra accessories that I have here. And I'm sure you can do that. I just have found that I can clean my barrel really well with some of these other chemicals. And so that's what I use. But feel free to explore. Today, I'm going to be using a solvent spray. So I just spray this into the barrel, and I let it kind of foam up. And then I take my brush and I just clean the barrel. So let's do that. Make sure this is on. You may want to wear gloves. I guess we don't really know exactly what they put in this stuff. So gloves might be safer, just FYI. But I'm just going to spray some barrel blaster in here, right? Okay. And this, I own a CBA muzzleloader. No, they're not sponsoring me. I'm not getting any money to say that. But they come out, CVA has a kind of like a full line of cleaning products that they use for their stuff. So most of what I have is CVA cleaning stuff. But yeah, that's what this is. It's a barrel blaster from CVA. And once it's in there, so you can see, you're gonna make a little mess while you're cleaning. So just make sure you're using a surface that you don't mind getting dirty. So the solvent was in there. I'm going to take my brush, and I'm just going to clean the barrel. Okay? And you want to clean the full length of the barrel. See, I can see the brush coming out the back end here. So I'm just going to make sure that it's clean. I'm going to do this for a few minutes and then take a peek inside to make sure I'm getting all the fouling. Okay, so let me do that, and then we'll come back when I finish that process. So go ahead and get you a rag if you haven't got one yet, so you can kind of clean your table and any excess solvent or whatever you're using to clean your barrel. Go ahead and clean that up. Just keeps things a little easier as we go down the line here. So that barrel blaster stuff, or if you're using soap and water, whatever you're using, you obviously need a brush. You need a brush. Now, whatever you decide to use as your solvent, or if it's soap and water, that's up to you. Do some research, see what you like. I found that I like the barrel blaster, but you need a brush. You need a brush, right? So I've swabbed my barrel, if you will, cleaned it out, and now I'm going to change my brush to what they actually call these mops, these little ones, and it's just a fabric. I like to get that and just go back in the barrel just to kind of dry it out. I do not want solvent left in the barrel because you risk rust in the barrel, and you don't want that. So make sure you dry it out after you have cleaned it. And look, that mop went in pretty clean, and it's now dirty. So you can see we're doing our job, right? We're cleaning our barrel. If you've just shot your muzzleloader, it's going to be even dirtier than that. So don't be alarmed if this is the first time you're cleaning your muzzleloader and that mop is completely powder black, because it will be. Your muzzleloader is going to be filthy. Even after 1 or 2 shots, your barrel's going to be pretty dirty. Okay, so I've now used my mop. Just going to kind of look down here, and oh yeah, that's looking much cleaner than when we first started. It's looking good. Okay, so let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be, right? I mean, as long as you clear that fouling and get up the moisture out of the barrel that you needed to get, your barrel's clean. And that's all. We don't need to make it any more difficult than that. We don't really need to make it harder than it needs to be. But one of the things I like to do once my barrel's clean is once again change my head on my cleaning rod here, and to one of these little plastic bits. And what these are for are the cleaning patches. So you see here, and I'll provide you a list at the beginning of this video of the materials I'm using, and at the end, just so you can see, and as we go through, I'll list them for you. But these are cleaning patches, and they come in packs of hundreds, So you want to keep these handy, and they just fit inside this little plastic bit here that fits onto your cleaning rod, just like that. And if you put too many, it's kind of hard to get through your barrel. Like I might have put a little too much, but I actually like a tighter fit, just to make sure I'm clearing out the barrel a little bit better. So you can see they went in completely clean, and now they are dirty. So we picked up some stuff with these patches, and you can do that a few times until you're confident that your barrel is as clean as you're going to get it. Oh wow, yeah, that really cleaned the barrel. It looks brand new. I'm going to try to get a picture of the rifling on this muzzleloader so you guys can see how clean it is now. And that's your goal, right? You want a super clean barrel. So really, we're done with our barrel. I mean, we're done cleaning it. The only other thing I would recommend is if you're going to store it for a really long time, if you're going to store it for a year, like, man, I'm probably not going to shoot that for a while. Or even if you are going to shoot it, in a week or two, what you can do is take a couple of cleaning patches, and this is called boar butter, okay? And all this does is it helps reduce fouling, but it really kind of coats your barrel, and it protects against rust. That's what I've used it for. So I'm just going to take a little, and I'm going to put some on the cleaning patch. Again, wear gloves if you're concerned about, what these chemicals might do to your hands. I haven't seen any short-term damage, but long-term, I don't know. Hopefully not. So anyways, I have a little bit of boar butter on there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to send that through the barrel, and I'm going to twist it as I go. and I'm just coating the barrel with this boar butter. And what I've found is this has protected my barrel. You should have no rust in your barrel, right? There shouldn't be any rust in your barrel. Once you start developing rust in your barrel, you're going to have some issues. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to call the barrel clean. We are done cleaning the barrel. Do not drop your barrel with your scope on it. You might damage your barrel and you might lose your scope too. You might break it. Okay, so the barrel's clean. So I like to keep, if I can, I like to keep kind of a cleaning area. Sounds funny. Keep your dirty patches over there so you know you've already used them. Just clean off this table a little. Okay, so the next thing we're going to clean is the breech plug. I have found this breech, this a little canister. It's called breech plug cleaner. I know, ingenious naming, right? And the way it works is, and you're really not supposed to touch this stuff. I'm going to use this rag. In this particular one, you pull out this little breech plug holder, if you will, and you put your breech plug on that, and you put it back into the breech plug cleaner solvent, okay? And then you screw it back on the top, put the cap back on, and it just asks you to shake it, right? And you're just trying to get some of the fouling off, trying to get some of that, just the powder. Fouling, when you hear fouling, it's just powder, really. So I just kind of want to loosen some of that up and make it easier for me to clean the breech plug, right? It's actually kind of cleaning it while I do that. So you can do that, and you know, this thing says no brushing or scrubbing required. Simply drop your breech plug into this container, close the lid and shake, dry breech plug off, and lube it with anti-seize grease. I go a little beyond that, but it actually does a pretty good job of cleaning the breech plug all by itself. Okay, so I know my breech plug is fairly clean, and now I'm just kind of cleaning the threads by hand using a rag. And remember, it still has this stuff on it. I don't know what that stuff is, so you probably don't want to touch it. Probably want to wear some gloves. And what I noticed before I started cleaning was there was some fouling on my breech plug. There was fouling there. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure all that fouling is gone. Right, and I'm literally using my fingernail. I'm pushing my cloth with the fingernail into each thread, and I'm just unscrewing that breech plug on my fingernail to clean the inside of the thread. Okay, the threading on this breech plug. And I'm going all the way up. Okay, and I'm actually seeing this is getting much cleaner. There should be no fouling on the breech plug once you've cleaned it. It should be pretty darn clean, all right? It was pretty clean when I first started, but it's even cleaner now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this breech plug cleaner aside. It's done its job for me. Again, there's people watching who are like, why is he using all those stuff? Just soap and water is fine. Hey, go for it. You know, I've tried soap and water. Sure, it worked fine, but these are just the things that I like to use. Makes me more confident that it's super clean. And if you're confident in your weapon, you're going to have a better hunt. You really are. You want that confidence. So my breech plug is actually fairly clean. Sometimes what I like to do is get a Q-tip, okay? And a Q-tip can sometimes get where your fingernails can't, and sometimes just cleans it a little better, right? So I like to get in the threads and just clean it. And I like to also, you'll notice that inside where the primer sits, where the primer is going to sit, this is a good spot for Q-tips also. And also you want to make sure all that solvent that you were just rinsing this breech plug in is out as well. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just in there and see, look at my Q-tip. It's dirty, okay? I'm going to get another Q-tip. And I just want it clean in there, okay? I want it clean and I want it dry. Okay, the last thing I want to try to clean is the firing pin assembly, okay? And this actually looks fairly dirty. It almost looks like I forgot to clean it when I stored this last time, which is strange because I typically don't do that. But you know, with the screws, actually this is the screw from my stock back to my barrel. You can clean that too. But this is the little firing pin assembly. You have the spring and you have this bit here that actually hits the primer. It's hard to see. I'll have to show you guys close up. And this is the screw that keeps my firing pin in place, right? And I want to clean them both, right? So you can use some of this solvent, some of this barrel blaster. You can use soap and water. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to put the firing pin assembly into the breech plug cleaner stuff and put it in there. Let it sit for a little bit. Take your rag, because this stuff always seeps out of the container when you shake it, so you don't want to get that stuff on you. And just shake it. You can hear the dropping it on the table here. You can hear the firing pin assembly in there moving around. Just want to shake loose some of that powder, that old powder. Okay. Open it again to put my cap there, because I like to put this piece in the cap after and let it dry off. Okay, so once I've done that, then I can grab the screw for my firing pin and my firing pin. Let's put this cleaner back. Okay. All right, put this on the rag. And I'm just gonna try to clean it. Can get a couple of patches, and I'm just turning over the firing pin and the spring. You can take your spring off. Just be careful, because if you lose that spring, I don't know if you can find another spring. Maybe they sell them. Probably buy a firing pin assembly, I bet, from the muzzleloader manufacturer. But I just want to make sure that it's clean. As you're cleaning your firing pin assembly, make sure you don't overdo it and break that spring. That spring is pretty small and fragile, okay? And I'm just gonna, what I did with the breech plug, I'm gonna do that with this screw as well. I'm just gonna make sure the threads are clean all the way down. I'm gonna take a clean Q-tip and just clean this screw inside. Just cleaning everything I see that has fouling on it, I'm cleaning it. Look at that. Look at that Q-tip. And that stuff builds up over time, and people don't clean it, and their muzzleloader starts acting funny, and they're wondering what's going on. It's kind of like driving your truck to 200,000 miles and never changing the oil. Your engine is going to start acting funky, right? Probably well before 200,000 if you never change the oil. But look at that. It's dirty. I mean, that Q-tip is not clean. So we just want to make sure that all this stuff is clean here. Everything you see in the barrel, the breech plug, and the firing pin assembly, make sure it's clean. Okay? So I'm pretty confident that that's clean. Now I'm going to put the screw back on the firing pin. The spring, sorry. The spring back on the firing pin. And my firing pin assembly is now pretty dang clean. Okay, let's do a quick overview. We've now cleaned our barrel, we've cleaned our breech plug, and we've cleaned our firing pin assembly. For our barrel, we used some solvent, just sprayed it down the barrel, and I used a 50 caliber brush to do that, and a mop. For my breech plug, I used some breech plug cleaner, tongue twister. And for the firing pin assembly, I used some breech plug cleaner, a little bit of solvent, and I just kind of cleaned it with my hands. It's a pretty small assembly, so it's a little bit tougher to clean. Okay, so we need to reassemble our muzzleloader. Now for this particular model, I need to get my firing pin assembly back in before I do anything else, because once this barrel is here, I can't screw this screw back in with a screwdriver. I have no access to it. So this needs to go on first. Now, if you need to take pictures as you're disassembling, by all means, or take a video just so you know how things need to sit, right? How things need to be situated. I know that my firing pin fits inside of this screw like this, okay? The spring actually goes into the opening of the screw here. So I know that this is the proper direction for me to reinstall my firing pin assembly. So I'm going to put that back in to where it sits. And all I did was, instead of, you can do it however you need to do it, right? But I put the firing pin inside the screw, and then I just inserted the entire assembly back in to where it needs to be. Taking my screwdriver, you can see it's just a screwdriver. I'll take pictures of all this stuff for you guys so you know what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, that's ready to go. You want to play with it just to make sure it's doing what it needs to do. It's working good, okay? All right, so we got our firing pin assembly back in. Now I want to get my barrel back onto the assembly. So to do that, for me, what I got to do with this particular muzzleloader is I got to open the brake action. And I got to get the barrel back into position. Boom, okay? I know, because I've done this a lot with this muzzleloader, I know that that is back into position, okay? So I can release my action, and my barrel is now sitting where it needs to sit. But of course I need to get my stock on. So I'm trying to do this so that you can see what I'm doing. You guys better love me for this. But okay, so now you see my stock. Look, I know which direction it goes. Make sure you keep track of that when you're disassembling. Slide it back on there, and then it just sits right on to my barrel just like that. Okay? And if you remember from the beginning, I just got to get that screw, keep track of your stuff, back on here, and I need to screw that on. Okay, so I'm going to get my screwdriver, flathead, and I'm going to screw that back on. Okay, so my muzzleloader is now almost fully assembled. What are we forgetting? Mr. Breech plug. Okay, I'm going to open the action, and you can see where the breech plug goes. I'm looking at that rifling. Pretty clean, pretty clean. But what I wanted to tell you, before you install your breech plug, I recommend using some anti-seize on your breech plug. So if you don't use this, you're going to have a hard time getting your breech plug off in the field, even if it's designed for you to do it with your hand. And some breech plugs aren't like that, but this breech plug is designed to be unscrewed by hand. You're not supposed to need any tools. But the issue is, once you fired a couple of rounds, so you hear all that pressure, the explosion, all that stuff, the breech plug ends up sitting real tight onto the threads of your barrel, and it becomes difficult to remove. So this anti-seize, what it does is it helps eliminate some of that friction, if you will, and some of that stick. Okay, so open the action. Let's get our breech plug back on. And literally with this muzzleloader, hand tight is enough. It's plenty to do. It's safe. That's what it's designed for. It's designed to be hand tightened in the field like that, and is now ready to accept a primer. Your muzzleloader is now clean and ready to shoot. So it's clean. Please let me know if you have any more questions on cleaning, and like I said, I can answer them in the third video in the series. But really, your main things, once again, just an overview: keep your barrel clean, keep your breech plug clean, and keep your firing pin assembly clean. If all those things are clean, your muzzleloader should be firing every time. There shouldn't be any issue as long as you're loading it correctly which I'm going to show you how to do in part 3. So let me know if there's anything specific you want to see in part 3. If not, I have plenty to show you there. So thanks for watching today, and I'll see you next time. Take care.